Hello everybody, welcome to the $9 show starring Grand Lobster King. I'm guessing a lot of people that are eventually going to find this episode don't know who I am, so I guess also since this is the introductory episode, I thought I would introduce myself, of course. Now, of course, Grand Lobster King, it's an absolutely ridiculous username. I came up with it in 2016, around June I think. To replace another terrible screen name I came up with. It was essentially a reference to a picture of a lobster that I put on top of my laptop at the time, and it ended up destroying the laptop. It was a live lobster. It was really a genius idea, I have to tell you. The water got into the keys, and I didn't have a laptop after that for very long. But the good news is then I got a nice desktop, but because I put the lobster on the desktop or laptop and claimed it was a picture of me before I ever did any kind of face reveal, I christened myself Grand Lobster King, and it's kind of been the name ever since. So this has been going on for 4 years now. My main platform, of course, is DeviantArt, where I draw pictures of military uniforms. I draw a fictional series called Pantaria, and for the people on there, I guess that's how I pronounce it. I pronounce it Pantaria. Maybe you said it differently, but the primary focus of this show, and the reason why it's called the $9 show, we'll get to later. First of all, the purpose of the show is it's supposed to be a, shall we say, twice a week, investment channel show where I review my portfolio of stocks and talk about thoughts on the market and that sort of thing. We're living in pretty exciting times when it comes to the financial markets, the system, the recession, the you-know-what crisis that if you say they demonetize you on certain platforms, we shall say. So my plan was to make a little series called the $9 show, and it would be exactly that. So, and by the way, $9 show, that's probably about what my budget's going to be for this series, the first couple of episodes anyway, but, I don't expect this thing to take off. It's probably not going to do very well for who knows how long, but I'm going to try to keep making them. If nothing else, if 5 people see it and comment on it, and I get into a nice discussion with them, I will consider this a success, because the people I know in real life have virtually no interest in financial markets, and the people that do, my best friend is interested in Tesla, but he has no intention of actually buying it. Tesla was actually the first stock I ever bought in 2019. I bought it for $298 and some change back in the day, but I'll skip over that for now and we'll come back to that later. I know Tesla is kind of a fan favorite. It's a stock like no other out there. We'll get back to that. Just a quick introduction for myself. I was born July 15th, 1996. I'm currently 24 years old. My dad was a Navy veteran, Vietnam War. He served on a nuclear cruiser and a missile launcher, and I still have his uniform. I'm very proud of that. I'm really meaning to gather up the medals and ribbons, besides the ones he already has still on the uniform, and complete the grouping. But my mother she had a very colorful work history, but quickly said she's essentially a lifelong alcoholic who is a very good person, always a good mother, but she has suffered very unfortunate circumstances throughout her life, both self-induced and environmentally adverse. So she's a very good person. I love her. She does her best. I try to help her where I can. She's very, very wonderful when she's sober, and when she's drunk, there's nothing worse. And there's plenty of people that can probably attest to that. But so fast forward to 2015. What essentially happened, in this quick summary, is because of my frustrations at home with, I didn't know at the time, but I was in a very poor family. We had a VCR. We slept on top of dirty laundry on the bed next to the window that my mom broke with her head when she was drunk. So the window's open, blowing in the air, the breeze of the night. and we're sleeping on top of dirty laundry, and we're going to bed at 6:30 at night because there's nothing to do because the power is shut off. We don't have any electricity in the house, and it was a it was like the Charlie Brown family, you know, where they're all just kind of laying there in the bed. There's just nothing to do until all of a sudden something happens, and it was kind of like that. I was a brat in school. I was trouble, but I wasn't ever dangerous. I was just annoying because, you know, for someone that has, and this is true for a lot of kids out there, maybe even some of the people that watch this, if you have a messed up family at home, you try to find attention and you know, welcoming, friendship, try to find something at school, even if it just means being obnoxious and, you know, trying to make people laugh. In my case, I wasn't dangerous or anything. I was just trying to make people laugh, and actually a lot of people found me amusing, which maybe wasn't a great thing because it made me do it even more. At first, it was just kind of being a class clown, making people laugh, trying to make people smile, trying to make people entertained, and it was probably more effective than it should have been. But I did not get the best grades until high school. I had lots of friends, you know, there was lots of people that I knew, people that I respected, people that liked me, people that I would see after school and all that stuff, and it was largely normal the longer it went on. So anyway, fast forward to 2015, I've got this backward mindset where finally I'm in a stable household. I'm out of foster care for, you know, 7 years. I'm with my parents again, and I finally have. I used to only see them on weekends, but so we're all together. It's all happy. Everything's happy-go-lucky. I'm out of school. I graduated June 11th, 2015. So, you know, everything's all hunky-dory, and so, but the family income is just not that great. My dad's Social Security is, you know, probably like $2,500 a month for 3 people, and that sounds like a lot, probably, especially for maybe a couple of people listening that should say, hey, $2,500, that's a lot of money, but not if you have a junky car. The rent is $575. You got a cable bill, you got electric bill, you got 3 phone bills, you got a home phone back when they still had home phones, and so I needed to get a job. So I applied for where I work right now, and they didn't take me because I goofed up the interview a little bit. Not because I was obnoxious, but because I couldn't do what they asked on a technical level. So I was at home, and my dad was upstairs, and this is where it's going to get a little bit more sad. I only ever told one other person on the DeviantArt community this whole story, but some people were watching it when I was posting about it on the website at the time. But essentially, I was 18 years old. This is 2015, and I would mow lawns. There was a guy named Donald, who would let me mow his lawn for $20 each time. It only took about 45 minutes. It was really easy. My dad would drive me there all the time. I never got my license. I was a kid who missed childhood, trying to be a kid forever to make up for it, and part of that was almost avoiding getting a full-time job or even a part-time real job. I instead, and I didn't get my driver's license. I didn't own a car, and I couldn't drive my dad's car. It was a 1992 Buick Century. You probably have a picture somewhere. And, you know, it was a piece of junk. He bought it in 2009 for $4,000 when it was already, you know, it's a used car. It's well used. And just take that and add another 6 years, and yeah, it was in the shop every month, and it would cost a fortune. Now, remember that $2,500, it was gone quick every month. So anyway, here's this kid. He's on the computer all day long. That's me. You got my dad. He's retired. And there's a whole bunch of background to this that maybe this won't fully make sense, but we'll come back to it someday. and he was upstairs, and I was like, "Hey, Dad, I got to get a ride to the, can I please have a ride to the lawn mowing place? I got to go to Don's house to mow his lawn." He's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll get dressed and we'll be over there." And so, all right. Only problem is he, let's say, had to go to the bathroom, and well, he had sweat dripping off his forehead, and he says, I can't do it. I cannot take you to mow the lawn today. I was like, okay, that's no big deal. I'll just take my bicycle. That's all right. I'm just gonna go take a nap, and when you come back, I'll probably be fine. Okay. So I ride the bike over to mow the lawn. I mow the lawn for the however manyth time. I must have did that lawn 100 times, and did it perfect as usual. Nice and beautiful, green grass, everything. And I come back, and I go upstairs, and my dad's asleep. And I said, "Oh, everything's all good. He's sleeping, and everything's fine." So I go downstairs, waddle down the stairs, and go sit on the computer where my you-know-what usually sits. And and my mother is asleep on the couch. She had an ear problem at the time. This is July 5th, 2015. And she's laying down because when she would put the drops in her ears, she would lay down so they would kind of go all the way in, you understand? And so she fell asleep in that position. And I was sitting on the computer clicking around YouTube, bing, bing, bing. And all of a sudden I hear this crashing noise, like all of a sudden, like, and so I'm like, what the hell was that noise, I run to the bottom of the stairs. I'm like, "Dad," like, "Hey," and there's no answer. So I run up the stairs, and my dad was sitting on the floor, and he couldn't walk. He couldn't stand up. So I had to pick him up. I picked him up like a big baby under the armpits, put him on the bed, and he's just looking around like bewildered. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And he's talking out of one side of his mouth. He's telling me, "Hey, I'm having a stroke." And he reaches over with his right hand and grabs onto his left wrist and picks up his left arm and just drops it. It's like a noodle. And at this point, I can't even fully comprehend what's happening. This is just unbelievable. Here's this kid that thought he was just going to be a kid forever living at home. Very stupid of me. And, of course, something that I regret. But had this not happened, who knows, maybe I'd still be trying to do that. But anyway, so he obviously needs help. My mom hears all this ruckus, and she comes upstairs, and, she had to wake up and come upstairs. She's like, "What's going on here?" She's like screaming his name. And so she called the ambulance, and the ambulance came. They took him to the hospital, and we went to go see him. And he was sitting in the hospital bed, and he had full function back. He was moving all of his fingers. He was looking around. He was talking pretty much normally, except that they asked him who the president was, And at the time, of course, it was Barack Obama, President Obama. And he said, "Who's the president?" "It's George W. Bush." And it's like, well, no, that's not exactly right. So they had him on the bed, and the nurses were really moving fast. Now, we had to actually ask the neighbors in the apartment building to give us a ride to the hospital, because we didn't have neither me or my mom, the two kids in the house, and the one parent, my dad, neither one of us had a damn driver's license. So of course, we'd either have to bus there, which would take forever, or walk, never get there, or taxi, probably wouldn't get there in time, whatever. So fortunately we had a nice neighbor that took us to the hospital. So never underestimate the power of a car. I mean, you would not believe. I used to ride the bus every day to work. My God, what a disaster. But anyway, So anyway, so he's in the hospital bed, and he's looking better, and he's looking around and everything. And finally, they were like, "All right, we're gonna transfer him over to the other hospital over on so and so Avenue, and they're better suited to treat strokes over at that hospital. They have more experts and equipment and blah blah blah." Okay. Well, finally, it's like, all right, well, we're gonna follow you over there and probably visit you after that a couple days later. So we say our goodbyes, and he waves goodbye at me with like a soft wrist, intense, gentle gesture, waving goodbye with a pretty neutral face, and that was the last time I ever saw him awake or conscious at all. So, at this point, now think of this. You got this 18-year-old kid, and kid is the best word. It's technically an adult, but there was a kid there, believe me. I got my mom, who, remember, is an alcoholic, and I don't understand the bus routes. I don't understand. We don't have iPhones. We don't have maps. Remember, this is a poor household still. Even 2015, we still had very little. I mean, we had a damn VCR. I still use a VCR only because I like it, but we had a VCR, we had the Fatback TV, we had the damn, everything. And we'd make food stamp tacos, where you buy a pound of hamburger meat and put the old El Paso seasoning in there. I still eat them that way. I just like it. So at this point, we really believe that my dad's only out of commission for, say, who knows how long, maybe a week, and he'll come back home. It's going to be back to normal. Everything's going to be fine. Me and my mother, we go out and we get a get well soon card. We ride the bus to the hospital, which is like 2 buses there and 2 buses back. A lot of fun, I got to tell you. Going through who knows what kind of neighborhoods, but so every time we would go see him, though, he's just unconscious. And it's just looking at a vegetable. He's there, but he's not there. And we finally got sick of going back and forth, so we actually asked for a room in the hospital, and they didn't have a room. So we slept on we fell asleep that night, one of these nights. This is like July 6, 7, 8, 2015. Fell asleep on that disgusting hard furniture that you're supposed to sit on when you're waiting for something, the waiting room furniture, the little couches where it's not even long enough to lay down on them, scrunched up like in a fetal position on this plasticky, woody, composite wood junk. But so anyway, we fall asleep there, and I wake up to somebody banging around a coffee pot. Now, at this point, I'm wearing my dad's hat. He would always wear the same baseball hat, so I started wearing it. It's kind of symbolic, I guess. I was starting to take over his role in the family. Remember, he was the parent, and then he got the 2 kids, me and my mother. So eventually the doctor said, hey, look, it's obvious at this point that your father is never going to wake up. And we just went livid. This is insane. Like, this guy was our everything. He was not even just my father. He was the world. He was the person that managed the household, the car, the transportation. He managed the household economy. He was everything. He was everything. And we both loved him so much. And all of a sudden, this doctor can just say, he's gone. Like, everything that he was and would have been is just erased. It's just gone. And we were crying our eyes out. And at that point, my mom went nuts. I mean, as you can believe, the only solution, or maybe the primary solution that she has to any problem, is to fall back on drinking. And I never saw anybody drink. She was drinking like a freaking puffer fish. And so at this point, we were staying at the hospital still because, don't want to go back home. We want to stay with Dad, And so we were put inside this little room where there's like 2 recliners facing a wall. And this is where we're sleeping. And my mom is like, all right, I'm going to Walmart. And she's drinking at this point. It's obvious, but she's not drinking enough to the point where she's throwing people down the stairs. But so she waddles around. She goes to the Walmart right next door. She gets some hot fries with a picture of the guy tossing it in his mouth. They didn't pay me for that advertisement, but my mother went to go get those hot fries, and she waddled back over to the hospital, and she told me on the way that, hey, I made sure to give some, I met a homeless guy out there, and I fed some of the hot fries to his dog, and I'm thinking, what the hell, this is just insane. And she took the card, the Get Well Soon card, and it's like ripped up a little bit. It was tossed around, and it was worthless now, because he's not only never going to get well, he doesn't even know we bought the card. I still have the cards in the living room. So at this point, I don't know what the hell to do. I mean, sorry, once again, I got to go over this again. You got this 18-year-old kid. This is a couple days before my birthday. This is like 6 days before my birthday. So my dad is essentially dead. My mom is drunk out of her mind. I have no income, no savings. I had $425. I borrowed it all to my father, and then he died with it. I still don't know what the hell happened to it. And the only reason I mentioned that is because the rent was coming due, and I was thinking about that at the time, like, while this is all happening, I still got to pay the damn rent. How am I going to pay the rent? And there's no transportation, there's no communication, there's no nothing. I'm just sitting here in this hospital. What the hell am I going to do? So anyway, finally we went back home, and we had to figure out, like, what in the hell are we going to do? So we figured, well, or mostly I figured, at this point I'm the adult. And this is really the part of the point of the story, is that this is what made me an adult. This is the part of my life where it forced me to become an adult. This is the part where, whether it was God or life or earth or whatever you want to call it, maybe all the above, says, this is the part where you have to become an adult, or we're not going to let you stay a kid forever. And anybody that tries to do something stupid like I did, where you try to stay a kid forever and just sit at home and do nothing, there will be a day of reckoning, and I hope you're ready for it. I truly do. I don't want you to be in the same position I was in. If you're making the same mistake I was, you have to turn around. Get a job. It doesn't even matter what kind of a job, as long as if you're living with your parents like I was, if it's $8 an hour, it's something. It's something for a resume. Well, anyway, postponing becoming an adult is something that has no immediate consequences, or at least it doesn't feel like it. And then all of a sudden, it'll all come back at once. It's like a coiled spring. You pull it back and you pull it back, and it feels stronger and stronger, but it doesn't whack you in the face right away. And then all of a sudden, one day, bam, there goes your eye. And that's what happened to me. July 5th, 2015, never forget it. That's the only day in my life where I'll remember everything that someone said, where they were standing, everything, because it was just like a section break in the person's life. And I'm sure other people have had moments like that, but that was definitely one for me. So anyway, so now we're getting closer to, July 9th, July 10th. So at this point, I decide, that, I'm going to have to take my dad off the machine, and we're going to let him die, because even if he were to survive, he would be in a wheelchair. He looked like Stephen Hawking, except not even functional. He couldn't even think. He would be a vegetable, and I know he deserved better than that. So at this point, we still have no money, and my dad is in the hospital bed. We've finally decided to pull the plug, and me, the neighbors, our family friend Bob was there, and we watched him flatline, and that was it. He was gone. So we didn't go to the hospital anymore. The nurses were crying. They were walking up to me. One of the nurses came up to me, tears going down her face. I'm so sorry about this and all that. And I just looked at her like she was crazy. I can't even comprehend what's happening. Like This is the same. This is 5 days after I was just sitting on the computer. I was just sitting on this computer, everything's fine, and 5 days later, I'm sleeping in a hospital recliner. My dad is dead, and I have this nurse looking at me, and I'm very grateful for her empathy, but I can't even comprehend what's happening. She's crying, and so we went back home. We're trying to figure out what the hell to do next, and well, the obvious is what's next. We need to figure out, we need to get my dad's body out of the hospital, and we can't afford a funeral. We can't afford anything. So I started calling up funeral homes, around town, and I finally called up this one called Peace of Mind, and we went over there. Once again, a neighbor drove us. Very grateful for that. And there was no place to park, so while me and my mother were inside, the car that brought us there was just going around the building in circles the whole time. So we went in, we sat down with the people, and there was a real nice guy, and I explained this crazy situation. Like, this is I would say Looney Tunes usually, but this is just so screwed up and just terrible. It's not Looney Tunes, it's just disastrous. So I explained, hey, my birthday is in 5 days or 4 days, and everything that's happened. And they're like, well, we understand. It's really unfortunate. Usually it's going to cost about for a cremation, and another $65 for the urn, or whatever it would be. I think it was about that. And I think because my father was a Navy veteran, because he could see that it was just this 115-pound kid sitting there, and they offered to do the cremation for free, and the urn on top of it for free. And I will be forever grateful that they did that. And I still have, of course, I would still have my father and the urn on the on one of the tables downstairs. One of the good things about starting on the ground, at ground zero, at rock bottom, is that there's nowhere to go but up. So we got to work, First of all, I needed to pay that rent. I got a notice in the mail. You have 5 days to pay the rent, or else just get out, I still have the note. It's terrifying. I've never seen a notice like that before, When you're a kid living at home in a house or an apartment, it just feels like you're home. It doesn't feel like, you're borrowing it from someone else. All of a sudden you get this letter in the mail, one sheet, and it's got this scribbly signature on it. It says, you got 5 days to pay or get the hell out of here. So I was not in my right mind at the time. I don't know if anyone was, but that was a victim of this. But I just started wrapping up stuff we owned in shirts. I didn't have any packing material, so I just grabbed a bunch of t-shirts and started wrapping it up and shoving it into a suitcase. And I was just sitting on the living room floor, and I realized that I have nowhere to go, and I have no way to get there. And at that point, I was just frozen. And finally, I came to my wits, and I coordinated with Bob, who was present when my dad flatlined, to essentially, I guess in financial markets, we would call quantitative easing. He would buy things from me to add liquidity to my personal household economy, and I would use that money to pay the rent. So he was getting assets, which were namely collectible toy trains, and he was buying them for more than what they were worth, because it was obviously more than just buying. He was trying to save us, and I really appreciate that, and I still talk to him. And I would use that money to pay the rent. In fact, once again, I had no way to pay the rent. He would drive us there, and also the neighbor would drive us there at least a couple times. So we paid the rent. Finally, I got a job. I had about $80 in the bank account. So this is getting towards October, September, October, and or August, September. It's like $80 in there, and were barely gonna make it. I got a job with, now that doesn't sound very difficult, but I had zero work experience. I had a couple of really crappy jobs I'll probably talk about in a different video, but you know, at least one of the DeviantArt people is aware of it. I think two of them actually, I told them. But those are actually more funny stories than this stuff. I got a job. It was a call center job. It's really simple. It pays the bills, and from there, starting at $9.75 an hour, my previous jobs before that were part-time temp service jobs, really low quality, like you wouldn't believe. And so it was 7 1/4, 8 1/4, and that was it. That was the maximum I ever made at that place. I was there for like 4 days. And so I got this call center job full-time, 9 1/4, $9.75 an hour in training, and then $10 on the actual call floor. And using those wages over the next 5 years until, say, the beginning of this year, I was able to save up, after buying a car in September 2017, a Monte Carlo, for $2,500. It was a steal. It was some people friends of friends that put that together, and I kind of negotiated the rest of it myself and handled it, but it would not have been possible without a friend I had. And so after buying a car, after fixing the household, I decorated this place up a little bit. I worked on my military collection. I have a collection of military patches, uniforms, headgear, newspapers, U.S., American, British, German, Japanese, for historical purposes only, and with the eventual intention of making a museum. Now, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I hope it does. I'll try to make it happen, but that's the dream anyway. And maybe dream is the best word, but so far so good. But on these wages, low wages, starting at $9.75 and 25-cent raises every 6 months, working up to what is now $13 1/4, I was able to save almost $20,000 by saving. And that is the beginning of the snowball that I would eventually roll down the hill of wet snow to try to build up compound interest, the beginning of my investment career, and what this YouTube series is about. And the $9, the $9 show, the $9 name comes from when I came home. After I came home from the hospital, I opened up my dad's wallet. Now remember, no money. I borrowed it all to my dad. When I opened up my dad's wallet, there was a $5 bill and 4 singles. That's it. Good luck. The rent is $575. This is where you start, and this is where I am. We went from $9 to $20,000, and I could not have done it without help from some very fine people. And thank God for the internet, for providing the necessary tools, the information, eBay for, giving me the opportunity to buy books about the topic of investments and all this and all that. And I rebuilt what collapsed all in one day. Took probably a couple months to rebuild, and then a couple more, probably a year to really get going. Kind of went from collapsed on the floor to squatting to standing to walking to running. And so that's what's happening. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about, $20,000 in cash. I did buy 400 stocks in between. There's also the first speculations I made. We could talk about that and the mistakes I made. Pretty much average beginner mistakes. I mentioned Tesla earlier on. We'll get into that. So 400 stocks right now. We're going to talk about what it is, how it's doing, where it's going, and I hope to post videos, I think, every Monday and Friday, In other words, after the close of the first day of the market's week and the after the close of the last day, and it's just going to be, you know, an update of what's happening, how it's doing. I'm going to be honest if I'm doing well. I'll show you if I screwed up, if I'm losing. I am following, this is important to know, I'm following value investing, dividend growth, portfolio management. I'm working on compound interest. That's the strategy. And I want this to, you know, I'm going to show in real time the growth, or maybe not, of how this portfolio does and how I add to it. And the eventual goal of this portfolio is financial freedom. That's all I want. And in a certain way, I think subconsciously, I'm trying to recreate the independence I had before I worked at this call center. And I'm using the income of this call center to create a float, similar to how Berkshire Hathaway uses Geico and insurance to make their float. I'm using the income of a call center, like a lot of people use a real job to subsidize, to fund their investment. I hope at some point that the income from the portfolio is equal or enough to live on, or at least to pay. I mean, right now it's enough to pay about a month of rent in the year. And we're going to get into all the numbers later, but I will say it's the dividends are about $800 a year. I think it's $784 from the 400 stocks. And I have no intention of drawing that out, obviously, if it's a compound interest strategy, as opposed to just, you know, speculation, buying, selling, day trading, technical analysis, all of which I would not recommend. Personal opinion, not a financial, you know, whatever you want to call it, advice. So that's what it's going to be. We're going to see how it goes. I hope you tune in for the next one. And remember, don't ever sell yourself short. See you next time.